Marissa is a small town country woman that moved to the big city and never looked back. She is a physical therapist in the occupational medicine setting, and she continues to be a caretaker with her friends and family when her workday is complete. She is a lover of all things pink, a health nut, and a believer in musical therapy, especially Reggae Fridays. Yeah. Please help me welcome Marissa Bolsen!
My earliest memory of being concerned with how I looked was when I was 4 years old and competing in the Little Miss pageant at our local county fair. My life question of, what do you want to be when you grow up, was answered with, TJ Hooker. Not that I wanted to be a strong female police officer. No. Instead, I wanted to be the beautiful, thin blonde that all men swooned after. I wanted to be Heather Locklear. Seems totally normal, right? For those of you who may not know who she is or be too young to recognize her, she was the 80s icon for a blonde bombshell, and I still see her picture in magazines all the time, often in a bikini. She looks good. Some years later, I recall staying with my maternal grandmother for the weekend. She offered me our Slim Fast chocolate shake for breakfast, which I was very confused about. Did I need to drink Slim Fast? She must think so if she's offering it to me. Fast forward a few years, and I'm in junior high. My other grandmother sees me at a holiday dinner and comments how I'm finally thinning out and losing my baby fat. I felt great. I didn't realize I wasn't then, but here I am being told I look better this way. I can remember starting to feel a little self-conscious of my body around that time, wishing I was more like my skinny friends that were not blessed with curves. Regardless, I was still a happy, confident woman up until the later years of college. I can still remember the very first time I vomited and the emotions that I was experiencing both before and after it happened. It was both horrible and exhilarating, which seems so crazy to say. I had recently returned to college for the fall semester and was dating someone that lived out of state. I had just woken up to reality after a night of drinking in which the guy I had hopelessly pined after for 9 months, his name was Tim, finally decided he wanted me as well. When I woke up after that night of poor decisions, I felt terrible for hurting my boyfriend, the person who loved me and who I cared for as well. I called and told him what happened, heard my best friend and roommate yelling at him, and then I went into the bathroom, where I proceeded to sob so hard that I began to choke. I remember thinking I was going to vomit, and then I decided perhaps that is what I needed to do in order to get rid of the pain. I stuck my finger down my throat, and out came all of the emotions that I was feeling. I felt like a weight was lifted. I would be able to face the day and the reality of my situation. Unfortunately, I also realized that day that I could gain some control over my life by doing something that, at the time, seemed so harmless. You see, as a third-year physical therapy student and serial perfectionist, feeling emotions that were not safe made me feel out of control. I have never been, and I'm still not comfortable, with feeling sadness, anger, or anxiety. My eating disorder progressed quickly, and by the end of my final year of grad school, I was vomiting multiple times a day, barely eating, and losing weight like crazy. I felt awesome. Unfortunately, the compliments about my slender frame only fueled this fire more, as I had always longed to be the skinniest friend. During this same time, I began a relationship with Tim, the guy I had so hopelessly pursued and was there the morning of my first eating disorder behavior. We ended up married 3 years later, and just days after celebrating our 1-year anniversary, I went to rehab. It is there that I learned that my disorder was likely caused by my intense desire for perfectionism. I was discharged with a greater understanding of why I developed an eating disorder, increased self-acceptance for my body, and a desire to change. I stayed strong for quite some time, but then my marriage fell apart after Tim cheated on me.
Once again, a safety blanket resurfaced. Thankfully, it was not as severe as before, but as I began to hear compliments about my physical appearance and my more slender frame, I began to think, what's the harm in vomiting? Sorry. It's okay. Don't apologize to yourself. A couple of months later, I met whom I thought was the love of my life, Chad. I continued occasionally using these behaviors for a couple of years into my relationship with him. Once he eventually became suspicious and caught me, he threatened to leave. I swore I would stop, and I did, until the day he told me that he had been cheating since before our wedding. It was 4 days shy of our 7-month wedding anniversary. He left, and I vomited. I did not eat for days. I thought that perhaps if I could gain control over my physical appearance and keep shoving down the emotions of sadness, grief, and anger, that I could have some sort of control over my life. I even discussed my eating disorder with my therapist while seeing him throughout the divorce process. I swore I would not let Chad cause me to go back to that dark place that is an eating disorder, as it is such a sad, empty, lonely place to be. I was strong for quite some time. I was healthy, avoiding the behaviors, but then Chad started to act like he wanted to reconcile. Could my marriage possibly be saved? The vomiting and restricting cycle began again. Chad noticed, and he questioned if I was healthy or had relapsed, commenting that I was too thin and could stand to gain a few pounds. Once again, these comments just made me feel stronger, like I was doing something right. If I could not please Chad, then I would be perfect on the outside once again to please everyone else. Furthermore, these comments made me feel like I was back in control. I finally hit rock bottom when I developed an infection in one of my salivary glands that ultimately resulted in being hospitalized for treatment. It was scary, physically painful, and emotionally devastating. How on earth could I, a strong, intelligent, fairly confident person in the medical field, allow this to happen? I quickly realized how little confidence I really had, despite verbalizing the contrary to my therapist, friends, and family. Once again, my life was so out of control that this was the only thing I felt I could take ownership for. I would make sure I looked perfect. And in the meantime, I was also able to shove my emotions down by way of eating. When those emotions became too intense, I would vomit. Being so sick was a wake-up call as to how deadly, unhealthy, and out of control my emotions and actions have become. I have not used any eating disorder behaviors since the day I was diagnosed with the infection and later hospitalized, which has been about a month. Sadly, it took being dangerously ill and having the man who insisted he would still be there to support me not show up to realize how far disconnected from my reality I had become. I realized that even with the use of these behaviors to control my physical appearance and how I felt regarding my body image, I still did not have any more control over my life. So here I am, a 32-year-old woman, about to be divorced twice within 5.5 years and cheated on twice by the person whom I trusted the most. That day I was admitted to the hospital and Chad failed to come rescue me. I had a huge aha moment. It was a wake-up call for me that I had come right back to where my eating disorder had started. If I couldn't control my life, I would instead control my physical appearance. After all, doesn't everyone love and accept a person with a perfect body? I started to realize that I had let the inappropriate actions of these two men that I thought had loved me so much make me think I was not good enough, specifically in the physical regard. I was hurting, possibly even killing, myself over the faults of others that I cannot control. I was letting their actions and poor decisions internalize on myself, instead of sitting with my emotions and moving forward as a happy, strong person that could accept that I was not the cause of what had occurred. I refuse to give anyone, let alone a man who cannot respect me, that kind of power over me ever again. I choose to be happy. I choose to be healthy. I choose to be strong. I choose to be confident. I choose to live my life as a beautiful woman that I am inside. Thank you.